Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth, and with me tonight is Michael Santos, right out in Tampa. How you doing, Mike?
I'm great, Scott. I'm great.
And we have a first-time guest, Andy Kasten, who is a very dear friend of mine with the Coral Springs Regional Chamber of Commerce. And Andy is a big hockey fan, and guess what's starting this week if it hasn't already?
That's right. How you doing, guys? Hockey it is.
That's it. Return to the sport played on frozen ponds. So, Andy and Mike, let's go out there and have at it. With that said, we're going to talk about the NHL bubble. The Eastern Conference is playing in Toronto, and the Edmonton is hosting the Western Conference. And Mike Santos, what are your thoughts about the choices that the NHL made to have those respective hub cities in Toronto and Edmonton?
Well, I've talked to a few general managers, and they're actually quite pleased with all the work the NHL's done to set this up. They really have left no stone unturned. They've limited themselves to only a couple of hotels in Edmonton and Toronto. I think that for better or for worse, but certainly for better for having this thing last and be completed, they've done everything they can to really isolate these players. Not only from the outside world, but from themselves. There's a number of rules that they've put in place. You can't have anybody in your hotel room. So, regardless of who you are, if you're there, it's just the teams in there, and it's one person in the room. You can't have a teammate or a coach or anybody visit in the room. They move the teams separately, so you don't even cross paths with another team. So the only danger is if somebody has it and they transfer it either on the locker room or a bench or on the ice. So I think they're doing a good job. I also believe that they chose Canada because they felt that it was probably a little bit less of a risk than trying to host this in the United States. We're seeing more outbreaks now in the United States, and Canada seems to be in a little bit better position than the U.S. when it comes to controlling the virus.
So you're telling me, Mike, this was a pretty well thought out plan, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really was. And everybody I've spoken to, I spoke to Kevin Shell the day off for the Winnipeg Jets about a week ago. I spoke to Julian Briefwad just today. He called me from the so-called bubble, and they say everything's covered. The food, their scheduled food time. There's 5 different restaurants that they're working with. The teams are scheduled separately to eat in those restaurants. So I know, like when the NBA when their players first arrived in Orlando, there was a lot of complaints about the food. It doesn't seem like they're going to have that issue. They also took what used to be Toronto, what used to be Exhibition Stadium, where the Blue Jays played in their early years, and they've turned that into a recreational area just for the NHL players. So apparently there's plenty of other things to do, whether it's play tennis or squash or work out or whatever you want to do out in the fresh air, and it's limited to that area.
Yeah, I actually saw a game at Exhibition Stadium with the Blue Jays a long time ago. I know the area you're talking about. That used to be near the old Hockey Hall of Fame out there, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. The old Hockey Hall of Fame was right there on the fairgrounds there.
Right, exactly.
Last thing, they even scheduled the arrival of the teams so that two teams didn't arrive close to one another. So whether you go in Edmonton or Toronto as a team, they arrived with plenty of time between flights, so no two teams were even arriving close to each other. So they could get a team through customs or through the airport or check in a hotel without having to cross paths with another team. So they've done a pretty good job, and every team's got just about 50 people in their traveling party between players and necessary personnel. One of the interesting stories that came up this week is the Arizona Coyotes general manager is no longer their general manager, so he's out with the team. But other than that, things seem to be going well. We'll see if we can get through these exhibition games and get started on August 1st with some games to count, at least for the bottom 8 seeds in each conference.
Yeah, you're referring to Chaika, right? Andy, what are your thoughts about the configuration of the bubble out in Toronto and Edmonton?
Well, listen, I think it's a great idea. I mean, you have to confine these guys somehow, some way to mitigate the spread, and it's going to be tough if somebody gets it. Mike, I'm sure you recall. It seems like each and every year, when the regular flu starts hitting these teams, it goes rampant a lot of times through the locker room, and guys end up getting it and they're out for a few games here and there. I imagine that, this is a lot worse. And so, I'm praying that they can, by just using these two locations and mitigate the travel and keeping the teams isolated, that they won't have a spread like we're seeing in the Major League Baseball right now, et cetera. We really, for guys like me that love the game, that want to see it played, we want to see all the players play. We don't want to see them sidelined. So I think it's great, Scott. I think they did. They put a lot of thought into it.
Well, here, and you know what, Mike?
That's a good point that you make, Andy, too, with with teams when sickness like the flu comes through on a team, and I've actually been in situations where where I went on the road where we had players where masks, so it wouldn't spread. So it's something that's uncommon, but this is obviously a lot different. Let's like you said, let's hope that these guys stay within the rules, unlike maybe what seems to have happened in baseball and what happened at least with one person in the NBA so far. If they can stick to their guns and follow the rules, I think things will be fine. And I think that will have a lot to do with the outcome and who comes out of all this Stanley Cup champ as to how they can cope with the rules and manage the rules as well as punches.
Hey, Mike, just to let you know that the Arizona Coyotes you were talking about was a guy by the name of John Chaika. He was there. Yeah. He's the one who left. That's the only other story. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but you brought it up. I just thought I'd put it out there. The Coyotes have struggled through the years, and they're becoming more and more competitive. So other than that, that's the only story. And you guys are making so many valid points. Let me put some numbers behind them, if I may, okay? First of all, the NHL has had 0 positive tests as the players report to the hubs. Get this number. In MLB and any other sport would be drooling for what I'm about to tell you. 4,256 COVID-19 tests from July 18th to the 25th, with over 800 players and 24 teams and 0 positive tests.
Wow.
Yeah.
Impressive.
Those numbers are staggering. So, well thought of. Yeah, that's an understatement, Mike, Andy.
Yeah.
I love the Toronto-Edmonton scenario. And, which leads me to my next point. The Toronto Blue Jays couldn't play their home games at Rogers Center, and as a result, they're going to be playing in Buffalo. Well, I think Canada had some pretty good hindsight, knowing full well that this MLB situation could have effects. I mean, look what we're seeing now. We'll get into the baseball part now. But Canada's hindsight, foresight, whatever you want to call it, definitely they definitely got it right here. Unfortunately, the Toronto Blue Jays are scrambling for an alternative, and won't be long before they all are. But, Mike, give me your thoughts about the fact that Canada was proactive, let the Blue Jays out, and Buffalo is in. Of course, the Buffalo Bison's got to be feeling good because they're going to get some upgrades on their facility, too. But, Mike, you comment, and Andy, you can follow, all right?
Well, look, there's no secret that, hockey is the national sport in Canada, right?
Right.
And so, that's why, first of all, it makes a lot of sense for both both locations to be Canadian for the NHL, particularly since we're playing competitive NHL hockey in the months of July, August, September. I think that from a following standpoint and an excitement standpoint, it makes a lot of sense to have all the games in Canada and both sites be in Canada. With regard to the safety part of it, I mean the key to this is all the teams come into Canada. They're all tested before they come into Canada. They're all tested regularly after they're in Canada. That's a little different than the Blue Jays leaving and going to the United States for every trip and coming back. And so, that's really where the difference is that, the Blue Jays, every road trip in Major League Baseball for them was going to be to the United States. And, it's no secret. I mean, it's around the world. We're not looked at too fondly for the way we've handled this virus. So, the Canadians are no dummies, and so they'll just watch their Blue Jays on TV wherever they play.
Go ahead, Andy. You're up.
Yeah. Well, listen. I mean, I can't really add much to that. I mean, I think that Mike's got hit the nail on the head. I mean, gosh, Toronto had the Jays they have to travel everywhere, and if they're traveling to the United States and they're coming back, obviously not a good scenario because Canada's done a pretty damn good job containing this thing. So I get it, and I think that it's the right choice, and lucky for us that it is, from a hockey perspective, anyways.
So, Andy, you had COVID-19. Why don't you tell the audience what your experiences are? And just for you folks, okay, this broadcast is being picked up by Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcasts as well. So, all you guys out there, if you haven't subscribed to us yet here on the Sports Exchange, I would strongly advise you to do it, and I'll give you the other places to find it. So, Andy, go ahead and let everybody know.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'd be more than happy to share. I mean, it's not anything, monumental, and that's a good thing. But I did test positive for it. I did have some symptoms. In a nutshell, I mean, the worst of it was probably, the first 4 or 5 days, and that for me, I did have some fever. I experienced some stomach discomfort and just generally felt run down. And that was for the first 3 days, but the first 2 days were the first 2 days that I only had temperature. So I was really lucky that I dodged that bullet very quickly. And then I developed some, upper respiratory issues, but I did not have the dreaded shortness of breath or the real dry hacking cough. But I did lose my sense of taste and smell about 5 days into it, and that took about a week for it to come back. All in all, Scott, about 15, 16 days from symptom start to no symptoms whatsoever. So, it was mild, respectively. I certainly wasn't asymptomatic as somebody who would have it and not know. I did know. And I was also lucky that I did not give it to my wife. She got tested twice. We made sure that from the early onset, we, stayed away from each other. We're empty nesters, so I was able to spend, stay in my daughter's bedroom, stay away from her, and we just tried to distance and wear masks if we were close enough to each other in the house. But, I did everything I could to keep myself healthy and, got plenty of sleep and, liquids and, to make sure that, at least, I was doing everything I could to kind of, keep myself in good shape. Now, I don't have any underlying health issues and I'm in really good shape. Well, yeah, and I'm still, at my, dear age of 60 years old, I'm still playing beer hockey 2-3 times a week. So I think that may have helped. Who knows? But it was scary. I just think that the unknowing part is the hardest part to deal with, because there's just so much uncertainty about this virus.
Well, let me tell you, Andy, when I saw you on that Wednesday call and you mentioned that, my jaw dropped. And for my jaw to drop, I can't afford to have jaws dropping here. Okay. But when I saw you there, I feel sorry for a lot of people, but boy, I really felt bad for you. And to think at some point down the road, I'm going to be bringing in studio at some point, but I figured, we'll do the phone thing for a little bit longer.
Well, I have had a negative test, so that's a good thing.
That's all right. Don't worry, Mr. Kasten. You're right around the corner here in Coral Springs. But when my jaw drops, holy Toledo, I bear anybody that's got to deal with it. When I get quiet, my wife says, well, if you're quiet, something's badly wrong because you're anything but boring, but whatever. Yeah. Depends on how I'm driven by by what I call my PED, performance enhancing drink, aka caffeine. So go figure. So, but I'm glad you're okay, Andy, and I'm glad that you
were. Thank you, buddy. I really appreciate that. But yeah, no, I was very lucky. I consider myself to be lucky, and there's a lot of people that haven't been that lucky, and that that's very unnerving.
I'll bet. Well, like I said, I'm glad you had a chance to hear your story. And Mike, what can I tell you, man? All of us are susceptible to this thing. Andy talks about playing hockey or beer hockey, but let me give you guys, since you're hockey people, a real fun joke. I had a doctor out in Kendall. At that time, he was at the University of Miami, and he put a medical device inside of me. And I wanted to have a hockey comeback because I need to see you. I need a video if you're going to have a hockey comeback. Wow, the only thing that stopped me was a neck operation and 2 shoulder operations. But for whatever it was worth, the ice den over here in Coral Springs got me. I ended up buying a Panthers jersey anyway. So what can I tell you?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, a jersey that'll never get worn. But what can I say? But it looks pretty good in the man cave. So while I've gone off on that tangent, who cares? Whatever. So let's talk about hockey. We're going to talk about some seeds here. The Boston Bruins are currently the top seed in the East. They have 100 points. And you guessed it, folks, the St. Louis Blues are at the top of the West. And if my memory serves me correctly, and I don't think I'm suffering from that disease called dementia, DUMBMENTIA, they faced each other in the last Stanley Cup. Could this be a revenge thing, Michael Santos? Will we see these two in Edmonton when the Stanley Cup is decided?
No.
You don't?
I don't think there's any chance of that.
Okay.
I think you can throw everything out the window, you name it, in this situation. Obviously there's no home ice advantage, not even for the Maple Leafs, for the Oilers in this situation. I also think the way that this is set up, that the top 4 seeds in each conference are playing relatively meaningless games for their to create their seeding for the next round, while the bottom 8 seeds in each conference are playing meaningful games. So I think you're gonna find teams that have to jack it up, so to speak, real quick to face a team that just came off of an elimination series. I think that, and of course, after a long layoff, I think the teams that play this mini 3 out of 5 series right away have a little bit of an advantage over the other teams that just played that the round robin for seeding. So I think, again, I don't think anything that happened in the regular season is anything now. I don't most teams are, except for players who didn't show up, and except for players that are injured or going to get injured here. Everybody else is relatively healthy, so that's not a big factor. So I think anybody's got a chance in this situation. I really do, and especially in the first we'll call it 2 rounds.
I'm going to ask you to make a prediction later in the broadcast. Okay, Andy, what are your thoughts? Do you think Boston and St. Louis see each other again when it all matters?
Yeah, I have to agree with Mike on this one. Okay. I think you throw everything out the window, you empty the bucket, you start fresh. And Mike, I think you're right. I think that the teams that get to play in this round robin that come through it and that advance may have a distinct advantage over the teams that are not playing. As you know, a lot of times when teams have time off in between games, it works against them. Hockey is really a game of repetition. And, like I was watching, they interviewed Tuukka Rask today, and they asked him that very thing about, hey, you guys were at the top of the league when the COVID virus hit. What is your thoughts on it? And he pretty much said the same thing. He said, listen, we haven't played in months. we can practice all we want, but games are where, the rubber meets the road. And so even he was, he's confident, but he said, there was no guarantees here for any team. So it's pretty much a toss-up, I think, for any of these teams. But the teams that play early on, I think, may have a distinct advantage if they don't get dinged up, on the way to, the big dance.
So, Mike, I got a question for you. You're playing in Toronto, all right? Now, do you think are they using Maple Leaf Gardens as one of the rinks? I know that it's still up. I don't see why they wouldn't use Maple Leaf Gardens since nobody's going to be there in the first place. But there's a lot of history.
As I understand it, all the games are at Air Canada time.
Oh, are they? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't believe they're using. I don't believe they're using any other rink other than the fact that the Maple Leafs have the Ricoh Coliseum, which is probably a mile and a half from the Air Canada. Well, Rogers Center, I guess we call it now. Is that right? I always forget the name of these corporate sponsor names. But,
yeah, I hear you.
But the Ricoh Coliseum is where the NHL season play, and I do know they're using the ice surface there for practicing and things like that. So, but that's the only other ice surface I know that they're using.
It would be neat if they did play some games over at Maple Leaf Gardens, since nobody's going to be there anyways. Bring back a little history, but again, we don't make those decisions anyhow.
I think they need a lot of renovation to get that going again. It's been quite some time. We forget that building has been closed probably for 20 years now.
I think they're using it for youth hockey, but they're definitely not using it for high school hockey. I never made it to Montreal Forum, but I got to tell you, many years ago on my birthday, oh my goodness, my birthday does come in. In fact, in 1982, I saw the Montreal Canadiens and the Toronto Maple Leafs play over at Maple Leaf Gardens and bought a ticket outside. It was a really great experience to be able to conquer Maple Leaf Gardens. So, yeah. So, all right, that came to my mind. So I'm going to bring up three teams. Mike, obviously, you worked for them twice, and Andy and I are right down the street from them, the Florida Panthers. How do you think the Florida Panthers are going to fare? Andy, you lead off with this one.
Well, listen, I'm a Panther guy, and I think that they play some pretty good hockey before the crisis hit. Obviously they're going up against the Islanders in the first round, and point-wise, they're 69 points. I think the Islanders had 68 points. So I like their chances against the Islanders. They had several more goals for, I think 231 against 192, so they score more goals than the Islanders do. But those darn Islanders seem to give us trouble every time we play them. So, I don't know, but I would like to see them do well. I'm hoping Bobrovsky may step up and be the goalie that we want him to be. And I think he just had a ton of pressure this last year, coming in, getting that big paycheck and having to fill the shoes of, the third most winning goalie in hockey history, right?
Roberto Luongo.
But I do like their chances, if they stay healthy.
Yeah, going into the tournament, Andy and Mike, just so you know, the Panthers are the number 11 team in it, and they have 78 points. So I just want to, I was checking on that earlier during pre-production.
Gotcha.
But that's okay. I mean, it is what it is, 78 points. And then number 11, it doesn't hurt that they have Joel Quenneville behind the bench either. And Joel Quenneville is a Stanley Cup winning coach as well. So,
he is.
So go ahead, Mike.
I think probably all of these series, especially the first round with the 5 through 12 teams, anybody could win a series. I don't think the seeds mean anything. There's no travel involved. There's no home ice advantage involved. There really isn't. Andy makes a really good point, especially early on here. If you got a guy in goal who's on top of his game, I think it's real easy to steal one of these early series. And that's probably the position that is going to take the longest for guys to come around on. Are the goalies. I mean, goalies, we marvel at them, especially these guys that play 60 or more games a year, but they really do get into a zone and they get into a rhythm, especially when it comes down to playoff time. all these guys are coming in cold. So a guy like Bobrovsky, if he can get focused and get in a rhythm soon, they can take the series. I'm not as fearful of a guy like Quenneville behind the bench because I think he's got his match on the other side with Barry Trotz.
Yeah, he does.
That's true. Good point.
So I don't think coaching is going to be a big part of this whole tournament. I really don't. Again, we've got teams at least right now which are pretty much healthy. We're gonna find out which guys kept themselves in shape over the past 3 months while they were on their own, and which guys were eating a lot of ice cream. And I think that's going to factor. And I would tend to say that the teams that have younger players are probably going to fare better in the long run because I think there's less distractions for them. There aren't families back at home. The guys with the young players are going to I think are fare well here because they're all about hockey when they're 19 and 20 years old. Sometimes when they're 27 and 28, things have a way of changing a little bit.
Yeah, they're fearless is what they are.
But I do think the Panthers can win that first series against the Islanders, but it's a real toss-up. And I don't think either team goes beyond that once they get through the first round.
Yeah, these teams are fearless and fast. So remember the two F's, fearless and fast. Okay, for the Tampa Bay Lightning, a team obviously your neck of the woods, Mike. Is this a year that they can break through here? Obviously, they've been knocking on the door for a while.
Yeah, I do think so. And the reason why is because they've got some younger players. But what they really have is chemistry. They've got real chemistry on that team, and a lot of it has to do with the coach. I also think that they've got a goalie who it won't take Vasilevsky a long time to heat up and get ready, and he's going to have that opportunity in those meaningless round robin games right off the bat that let's say Bobrovsky won't. I mean, they can lose all their round robin games, and be fine because the real games don't start until the next round for them. So I really like their chance. I think that they're probably one of the favorites in the East for sure.
What about you, Andy? Do you have an opinion on the Tampa Bay Lightning?
Myself?
Yeah.
Listen, they're a damn good team, and again, will they get going and will they continue to play, as well as they did? Probably will, and I'm not a huge study on their team, but they've got a great core of guys, and they're going to be tough to beat.
All right, what about the Vegas Golden Knights, Mike?
Love that team.
I think Vegas has got a real chance in the West. This break might have helped them a little bit because they went through a coaching change in the middle of this year that everybody was a little surprised at. But they brought in Pete DeBoer. I know Pete's a real, Pete's a real stickler. He's a real, guy that wants to play disciplined hockey. So yeah, I like them. I wouldn't call them the favorite out there, but they're definitely a pick.
What about you, Andy? You seem pretty high on them.
I like their team. Of course, they've got a couple of our former Panthers playing on that team.
Right.
So but they're a good team. I mean, I've been out to Vegas. I've seen them play live. I think they play great as a team, and they're fast. They're a fast team. So I think they've got a promise to go deep, into these playoffs as well.
Your favorite team, I believe, Andy, is the New York Rangers, right? They're the number 10th seed, 79 points when the stoppage occurred. What are your thoughts about the Rangers?
Well, I love. Again, I'd love to see them go deep. I got my reservations about them. I guess they play the Hurricanes in the round robin, first round robin. And that's a young team, is it not, Mike?
Yeah, the Hurricanes are a young team. They're a little.
Yeah, they are.
I think the key for the Rangers is what is always been a key for them in the last 10 years, and that's Eric Lundqvist.
Yeah.
Older guy, hasn't played now in a few months, and he's another one. Their first round games mean something, so he's got to be ready to go. And I think they'll go as far as he can. I mean, they've got some young, they've got some good young talent. They've got some Aaron up front, obviously.
Right.
But I really think early on in the tournament, goaltending, people that get goaltending early, it's gonna be the difference.
It's amazing. The Rangers have had such a great history, and all of us are old enough to understand what type of history. When you talk about Vic Hatfield, Jean Rattel, Ron Gilbert, Eddie Giacomo, am I driving you nuts here, Andy? Joe Villemure, and if that isn't good enough, what about Mark Messier? Are you still feeling fatigued here with all these incredible names I'm throwing at you, Andy Kasten?
You're taking me back a few years.
Taking me back a few years too. You're not much older than I am. Remember, I'm a Detroiter. Gordie Howe.
I prefer if you just take me back to 1994 and we could just play that reel over and over and over again.
Well, Mark Messier is a guy that everybody will idolize. Number 11. I've never been to Madison Square Garden, a bucket list item, but I'll tell you, that was a heck of a game there. Unreal.
What a great place to see a game. On that note, though, I've never been to a game in Canada, and it's always been something that I've wanted to do and I will do. But I'd love to go see, I'd love to go see a game, played in Canada. It really doesn't matter to me where, but I've never experienced that, and I understand it's a hell of an experience.
Well, you need to do it. In fact, not only did I mentioned about the Leafs and the Canadians over at Maple Leaf Gardens, but I met Dave Hodge. Remember him? Over in Vancouver when the Canucks, I think, took on, I believe it was either the Calgary Flames or the Edmonton Oilers. I'm almost certain it was Calgary, but I'll tell you, remember the old Pacific Coliseum, Mike? Oh my goodness!
Oh yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, it was a pretty cool place. So, let me ask. We got a few more things I want to get to. I think we're having a lot of fun here. So I'm going to throw a really off the wall thing at both of you. What are your thoughts about the Seattle Kraken?
Mike,
I talked to Rick Holstead yesterday. He's Eddie Olczyk's brother, and he's an assistant GM. It's great that they've got a name and they've got colors and all that type of stuff. Apparently, it was popular with their fan base, which is important. But what we talked about is that it's not going to, it's not going to mean anything to anybody there except for the marketing people for the team, because right now they haven't lost a game yet, right? But their real job, and it's a tough job given what's going on with the pandemic. Not only just because of the NHL, but because of all the other leagues that are not playing and they don't know when they're going to start playing, including the junior leagues, the colleges. Their tough job is going to be to put a team together. Yeah. And, the expansion draft's great for picking up 30 players that are at the supposedly near the bottom of everybody else's NHL roster. But for the long longevity of this organization, they've got to draft really well. And that's going to be a real tough thing for them, especially if we don't have a lot of junior hockey or college hockey this season. So they've got their work cut out for them. I think the market will be fine. Everybody that believes that they're going to be another Vegas Golden Knights and jump right out there and be a Stanley Cup contender.
Well, what about the name?
I think is going to be full.
What about the name Kraken? I was hoping they'd go with the Seattle Metropolitans, but I don't think Gary Bettman wanted any part of it because one of his divisions is named the Metropolitans.
That's true.
Yeah, but I was hoping for the Seattle Metropolitans, the first American team ever to win a Stanley Cup. Why not bring them back? They did it with the Ottawa Senators. But, that was just me. Nobody's listening to me, except you two. And everybody else out here listening to us.
Yeah. Well, Scott, with my twisted brain, I was already thinking, are we going to call the fans, the true fans, the crack and crackheads? Because that's not going to work out too well if that's what happens. But it is a thought, and I'm sorry. And I never had a thought that somebody else didn't have before me, so I'm sure somebody else is going to run with that. I like their sweaters. I think they're pretty cool looking. Yeah. I've seen some of the alternate colors, and those look pretty good. So, if for nothing else, it'll be another one to add to my collection.
Well, I got to...
But I think the market will be a good market. I agree with Mike. I think the market will be fine out there.
Well, you got a natural rivalry with the Vancouver Canucks in the Pacific Northwest, without a doubt, so that's automatic. I've taken that drive from Seattle to Vancouver before. It's not that far of a drive, but cracking to me, it'll take a little bit of getting used to with it. I was actually at the Key Arena of Seattle Center Coliseum, and I saw, I believe, one or two Seattle Supersonic games. I've hit all 50 states, so I tried to hit an event in the majority of them, and that was a place there. I saw the King Dome, and I saw the Seattle. So location-wise, Space Needle and all, but I don't know. I'm still saying Seattle Metropolitans, even though nobody will listen to me, and I got a bunch of people I know out there, but it's worth throwing out on the table. So, a few other things I want to get to. The Detroit Red Wings finished last, dead last, have to eat a little crow. What's worse about the whole darn thing is the NHL's lottery, they got the 4th overall pick. Mike, for some reason or another, I don't think the Red Wings definitely swallowed a bitter pill.
Yeah, again, the prize this year seems to be the Lafreniere kid from the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. But other than that, I wouldn't put too much stock. Steve Eisenman's always done a good job of putting together his scouting staff. I'm sure they've got ideas on what they need to continue to build that team. And the fourth pick will be a good player. The one thing you just have to remember when you're talking about the NHL especially is, you're looking at kids when they're 16 and 17. You're drafting them when they're 18 years old. And, you're trying to predict what they're going to be when they're 22 and 23. And, this is one thing I tried to do with the Panthers, my last stop there, but they just didn't want to listen. And you cannot continue to draft 18-year-old players and put them in the NHL at 18. They're just not ready. I don't care who they are. It's only a generational player that can do that. It's only your Sidney Crosbys or your Wayne Gretzky's. Most of these guys are kids. And, I would hear it all the time from people, he's a good player. No, he's not. He's a teenager. And they'll make a good selection at number 4, and they'll make good selections in the other rounds too. And most importantly, the one thing I know about Steve Eisenman is he'll develop those selections, and they'll be in the NHL when they're ready and they're ready to contribute.
Andy, any thoughts about the NHL lottery system? A lot of people think it's flawed unless you get the top overall pick.
No, I like the way they do it, Scott. I don't have a problem with it. I think Mike's point is well taken in that these guys are really young when they come in, and if you try to put them try to bring them up too soon, I think it puts way too much pressure on them. Right, teenagers, as Mike says. I think the Panthers. Yeah, I agree. I think we made mistakes with guys like that going back to way back to like 1996. With some guys that ended up on other teams that became, really good third line guys that we had on our first line or our second line, and just couldn't shoulder that kind of, responsibility, et cetera. But you gave them that role on the third line, and man, they shined like they were great players. Rob Niedermeyer is one of those guys that comes to mind. I just thought they overtaxed him when they played him. He was a fan favorite. But he became a third line center, right? And he was great. Played, when he did that, he was a checking center. He was great. I think the Panthers also made some mistakes with those young guys in the roles that they had them play. Of late, I think they've done a hell of a better job, with that.
Fair enough. All right, I want to go on to the Miami Marlins for a moment. I want to talk about their numbers. Obviously, we're in this hot spot. So here's the updated report on them. Miami Marlins obviously have been snake bitten by COVID-19. 17 members of their traveling party we're talking about. And now the Miami mayor is saying they have to quarantine for 14 days when they come back. And they won't play until Monday. Andy, you're close to the situation. What are your thoughts about the most recent numbers of the Marlins?
It doesn't look very good, does it?
No.
I mean, can they even roster a team right now? Was it 17? I thought it was 15. Now there's 17 guys that are positive.
Well, you got 17 in their traveling party. I say 15 of them are players too. But you have a taxi squad too, Andy, up in Jupiter, and you have a pool of players, and they've picked up a couple players from the Reds and one from the Brewers. So they're trying to add to their major league talent pool to go along with it. So they have to rest and test. How do you like that? Rest and test, like you had to do. But it doesn't look very good. And now when the Miami mayor tells them they have to quarantine, and the saddest part about the whole thing is the fact that when they left Miami, they were clean. But then you go to Atlanta, and then you go to Philadelphia, and then everything goes ballistically crazy, and all heck breaks loose. So, go figure. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah. Well, the one thing I did hear about this, guys, is that apparently there were two players that tested positive earlier in the trip, and as a team, they decided to just keep playing and not tell anybody.
Okay.
So that's where the big mistake was made. And now they've got 17 or 18 or however many there is. I'm sure there's going to be more.
Oh yeah.
But that's the problem, right? I mean, they had two guys that tested positive, and instead of coming through and doing something about it, they talked about it as a team and said, let's just play and not tell anybody.
Yeah, not good.
And apparently that's what really has the Phillies upset, because they walked into their ballpark with a bunch of sick players.
Right, and now Derek Jeter is saying they're going to test every day, and Derek Jeter is the front man of this whole thing. You know what it's like to actually go on a Zoom call with the Miami Marlins day in and day out and find that about 50% of your questions on the Zoom call we're talking about COVID, and the other 50% are on baseball. And just recently, once I became a member of the media for the Marlins on these Zoom calls, this to me was unbelievable. I'm used to covering spring training. I never see anything like this. And if there's anybody that ever felt sorry for, it's Don Mattingly for sure. I mean, him and Derek Jeter have the most thankless job in the world. One's got to enforce it. The other one has to be the police. It's unreal. So, but this is where we're at, and the Marlins are going to be taking a break for a while, and who knows where they'll be playing, and when, and how many, and who will be playing. I guess we can refer to the Marlins situation as Abbott Costello. Who's on first? What's on second? Who's going whatever?
Do you think they're going to end up playing? They're scheduled to play on Tuesday against the Orioles, but I don't see that happening.
Andy, they're not playing until next Monday at the earliest.
Is that right?
Oh yeah, no, that's right. No, next Monday. So go figure. They're staying in Philadelphia. If the city of Philadelphia is a city of brotherly love, and Santa Claus is Jewish, because it wasn't too good for him on this particular trip. So sorry, Santa Claus. Sorry, Jewish people. Didn't mean to mix the two of you, but the appropriate time came for me to do it. So folks out there, don't take it personal. It's just a Motor City mad mouth analogy once in a while. All right. So with that said, okay, I'm going to talk about the NHL's numbers again, which I'm so proud of, and the fact that the NHL has 0 positive tests with 4,256 COVID-19 tests for the 18 through the 25 and 800 players, 2014. Isn't that a beautiful statistic?
Pretty amazing, right?
Isn't it?
Speaks of discipline, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great. Let's hope that, again, everybody can follow the rules and it stays that way. this is going to be an endurance test. Remember, these aren't baseball guys that are traveling from city to city and spending some time at home. Like they're going to be, to win this thing, they're going to be stuck in one town for 3 months, and so that's going to be a real test. I think you're going to find again some veteran players that are going to go a little stir crazy. I think you're going to find teams, unlike a traditional Stanley Cup playoff, teams that get down by a game or two are just going to pack it in, as opposed to saying we can still come back in this thing.
Right.
And I really think it favors the young guys. But they seem to have all the precautions in place. Hopefully, at least they seem to have more precautions in place than the NBA does right now, and so that bodes well. But who knows? I mean, this virus can come in with anybody, and it doesn't have to be a player that brings it in, right? It could be anybody.
Well, you know what? You know why I brought that stat up again? On all my broadcasts, I've been saying all along that hockey will be the only restart survivor. That's what I believe.
Yeah, it's possible.
I believe
That'd
so.
Be really nice.
I mean, think about it. These guys are playing with a lot, with their uniform on a cold surface, cold air. I don't know how much that affects COVID-19, but you've got a lot more equipment than some of the other sports, right? I would think that the equipment could be more of a protective situation. Obviously, it's going to have to be clean, washed, sanitized, whatever. But that's what I've been saying on every single broadcast. I believe that hockey will be the only restart survivor. So what do you guys agree or disagree? I know, Mike, you want to feel that way, right?
The team sports, I think they've got the best chance because it looks like they've been set up to succeed. But so out of the four majors, we'll call them the four major sports. I think they've got the best chance to get through this. Now, long term, I don't know what kind of damage is going to be done to the sport because they're going to have to pick up and start a season again, another season a couple months later, and that'll have to be a regular season, if you will. And I believe they're going to do a lot of damage to the minor league and all the other levels of hockey, by making them wait until the end of the year to get started up again.
Okay. What do you think, Andy?
Scott, it would seem to me that if there was a sport that could have a real issue with the COVID virus, it would be hockey. Because while they're not touching a ball, let's say, I mean, think about it. You're huffing and puffing out there. You're running into guys. You're face to face with them. None of them wear, at best they wear a shield, right? But I mean, their mouth and their nose is uncovered, and they're sitting on the ice and on the bench, and so it boggles my mind that they would be able to contain it. However, I think the key was keeping them from testing positive to begin with, and making sure that once they got in the bubble, they didn't have any positive cases. So if nobody, is a bad boy and goes outside and they adhere to all these things, I think they're going to be fine, but it's going to be awfully tough to be disciplined like that over a period of time.
All right, well, that leads me to my final question with you guys, okay? I've been waffling like Brett Favre, waiting for this question. So I'm gonna put you out there and give me some predictions. Who's going to the Stanley Cup, and give me your sleeper team. Andy, lead off.
You're putting me under the spotlight here.
Oh, that's all right. We're all in this together.
I mean, listen, I still like the top teams, that were there. I like Boston. I like Pittsburgh. I like St. Louis. But if you're going to nail me down to one team,
right?
I guess I'd say, who's going to have the hot goalie? Would it be Boston? Will it be, Pittsburgh. I don't know. I'm gonna go with Pittsburgh. I think.
To win it all, and who are they going to play? Okay, no wrong.
That I haven't thought of. Ask the expert, Mike. I'm sure.
Well, I got to ask you. All right, you were high on. Should I go out there and say that you're looking for the Golden Knights? I don't care.
I'd love to see the Knights in there. I think it'd be great.
All right, so we'll give you Vegas. How's that sound, Andy?
All right.
And I'll tell you what. If you end up going ahead and picking that light, then I got news for you. We're going to enter into a negotiation how we could really bring you on for future consideration beyond some of the obligations I'm going to have to help you out later on.
All right.
All right, go ahead, Mike.
In the East, I like the Tampa Bay Lightning. I don't think that's much of a stretch. In the West, I like a sleeper team, and it's the Vancouver Canucks.
Ooh, really?
I think they're a young, exciting team. I think Jacob Markstrom is chomping at the bit to have a chance to play the playoffs for the first time. And I think they're built for this bubble world. So I like the Vancouver Canucks in the West. If there was another team that I would pick in the West, they're also a sleeper team for me. And they're pretty close to there with Vancouver, and that's the Colorado Avalanche. I think they're young, not as young as Vancouver, but they're real strong up front. I think they're going to score. I think they're going to score a ton, especially early on in the tournament.
So who's your winner, Tampa Bay or Vancouver?
I'm going to take Tampa Bay.
All right, I'll give you mine. All right, you ready? I'm going to go Colorado Avalanche because I have the same feeling that you do against the Washington Capitals. Now,
okay.
And believe it or not, I have to go with the Capitals. I do. I don't know. I have a gut feeling about that. Yeah. Now, my sleeper team in the West is the Edmonton Oilers, and I'll tell you why I say that. How appropriate would it be for Ken Holland to win a championship after he leaves Detroit and gets inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame?
Oh, there you go.
In that city.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It'll be fun.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can't say it's a match made in Hollywood, but it'll be a match made in Edmonton.
There you go.
I don't know if they film any movies out in Edmonton, but they've had quite a hockey history over there. So now that I put you guys through the meat grinder, I'm going to make it easy for a lot of you guys to go ahead and promote yourself. And we'll lead off with you, Mike. I'll let everybody know how they can get a hold of you, other than the fact that you're a hockey and UFC analyst and jack of all trades and master of those and many more. Go ahead.
The best way to get a hold of me is by email at santos@hockeyoperations.org.
And Andy Kasten, the floor is yours.
Get a hold of me. You can go to, it's real easy. Andy Kasten at gmail.com.
People know what you do and how they get hold. You want to put a phone number for all those individuals looking for auto insurance?
Okay, so if you're in Florida anywhere and you're interested in talking insurance and you need some help with that, you can email me at Andy Kasten at andykasten.com, or you can just simply call my cell 954-854-4314, and that's the best way to get a hold of me because I almost never I'm without the phone.
Very good. And I'll let everybody know here that you can find our broadcast on Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts. If you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting for? Subscribe, okay? And to get a hold of us, you can reach me on Twitter at Tribune South, Facebook, South Florida Tribune Gets It Done, Instagram, South Florida Tribune Gets It Done, YouTube channel. Andy, I'll put you and I'll have one of these times down the line when we're able to do it. You can subscribe to me there at South Florida Tribune. It's a freebie. Our website is www.southfloridatribune.com. You can also find our broadcast on that website. You can email me at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. And you can also go ahead and find me on LinkedIn, Scott Morganroth. I'll be more than happy to go out there and connect with you. So you are listening to the Sports Exchange on WSAN Network and as well as SouthFloridaTribune.com. So, guys, it's been a lot of fun talking about hockey, which I do believe will be the sole survivor, and I couldn't be happier than to have two classy guests to bring the sport back on a high note. So, thanks for being on the Sports Exchange tonight, Mike. As usual, we'll have a date in a couple of weeks with UFC. So, hope you enjoyed talking hockey tonight, Mike.
Thanks, guys. Stay safe.
And Andy?
Thanks. And it was great, Scott, and thank you so much. And it was a treat to be able to be on the line there with Mike as well. He probably forgot more about hockey than I ever knew. So
yeah, I'll tell you what, Davey.
Special treat for me.
Mike knows a lot, but you know what? You hold your own really good. I knew that all along. When I paired you two up, I won't call myself Don King being a matchmaker because I don't quite have his hairstyle. But I think, and I may not be as good as Dana White, but I think we definitely had a lot of fun tonight. You two are absolutely classy tonight. And welcome back, hockey. You guys will be the lone survivor. So on behalf of Michael Santos and Andy Kasten, my name is Scott Morgan. We're out here on the Sports Exchange telling everybody to be safe, social distance, and we will catch you on the next episode of the Sports Exchange.